Hi everyone. So today I'm going to do a quick gouache tutorial, and I'm going to be working with a painted background rather than starting on a white surface. I'm going to be working with complementary colors, and so it's going to be a little different. I'm going to be building up layers, and it's just a technique I really love and enjoy working with. So I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please consider hitting like and subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate it because it helps my channel grow. Thanks for being here. So let's hop inside and I'll meet you there. Okay, so the first thing I'm doing here is I'm taking liquid acrylic paint, and I'm using quinacridone magenta, and this is one of the only times you're going to see me really water down acrylic paint. Normally I do not water down acrylic paint. I use medium, but in this case I wanted to work or act like watercolor. The reason I'm doing my underpainting with acrylic is because I want it to not to move when I paint over it. So I have done this technique in the past with watercolor, and you need to work very quickly and not use a lot of water, and you can't do any kind of wet and wet techniques if you do the underpainting with watercolor, because your underpainting will move. And if you're working with complementary colors, if you know about color mixing and complements touching, you could potentially make mud or a neutral when you mix complementary colors together. So what I'm doing here is I'm prepping two backgrounds, and I'm going to be using some greens and yellows. So what I'm trying to do here is create this pop of color here. There's not going to be any of this color planned in my painting, so this will act like a complementary pop where it shows up and appears in my painting. You know, the little bits and places where you accidentally might have pinholes, or around your subject you might leave some little bits and it'll pop through and come through. Now, I did some studies of these yellow lilies from the garden, and I did them from observation, which is how I like to paint. And then one of the ways that I like to use to develop my own style, or that you can use to develop your own style, is rather than painting from direct observation, you can then work from your own paintings. So now I'm not working from observing the flowers themselves or working in the garden. I'm working from my paintings. And so I have two different types of studies that I've done. I've got two little oil pastel paintings, and then I have one that I did in gouache in front of me. And so both of them have lots of different kinds of mark making techniques and how I like to make marks and render. And so that is what I'm using to further develop my ideas on these little pieces of paper. I knew I wanted to bring in more complementary colors because I really love working with color. And so my next step here is the complementary color background, and I am drawing my little preliminary sketches with oil pastel over the top of these. And then I'm going to begin to paint these with gouache. And that is the next step I'm going to take. And I'm going to show you one complete painting and how I proceed with that. And now you'll see I have one of the studies done, and I'm going to complete, and I'm going to do another one start to finish, and that's the one where you can see me do the entire process. Drawing another preliminary sketch here in the red, and I've used a warm red oil pastel here, and this oil pastel is not a super creamy one, so it's not really going to do a lot of resist, although I chose one that was creamy enough that it will show a little bit or push back the paint a little bit so that some of that red's going to pop through, giving me a little bit more of the complementary pop in my finished painting, because I do like to see a little bit of the drawing when I'm done. That's just something, I've been a mixed media artist for a long time, so I do like using either colored pencils or pastels in my work. Now, whether I'm painting in gouache or watercolor or acrylic paint or oils, I always think of my paintings in layers. So it's kind of surprising when people think about water media in layers, but I always think of all my paintings in layers, and I may change part of my drawing as I go along. If I see something that needs to be changed, I might change it in paint. I don't always stay 100% true to my drawing when I'm painting. I may change it up a little bit. I never feel like I have to stick to it. If I see something once the paint starts going down that I feel needs to be changed. It also depends, really, as the paint starts to dry, especially with gouache, because the color of gouache can dry either lighter or darker depending on the hue that you're putting down. It very often does change, so you need to make decisions that might change with gouache paint, and so it depends on how it's drying and what's next to it as to what colors you're going to continue to put down, or how much paint you're going to need to put down, or what colors you're going to be using. So I'm always ready to change my mind about how things are happening in my paintings and how many layers I'll need. It's almost surprising in some parts of the painting, like as it starts to dry, how much more paint you need to put down with the gouache. Like this little flower in the corner, it dried so much lighter, and it just needs a lot more layering, and I ended up mixing a lot more white into it because it wasn't opaque enough, where in other areas it didn't need so much paint. It depends on whether I used a cool yellow or a warmer yellow. Some of the paint colors are more intense and cover better, or are more opaque. A lot of times if you just add a little bit of titanium white and make a tint, it becomes more opaque and you'll get better coverage. That's all a learning curve, and how much you know about the paint you're working with, or the brand of paint you're working with. But that's the other reason why I always use titanium white and none of the others, because when you're making tints, which is any color plus white, you'll get much more of an opaque color, and you won't have to fight, trying to build beautiful opaque tints. And I tend to make a lot of tints in my color palette. So you'll be able to see now where I start adding the green in, how the magenta is going to come into play, because you'll start to see little pieces of that magenta color coming through around the edges of the flower and in the background color. These are early layers, but you'll be able to see little bits and pieces of it popping through as it begins to dry. And you can even see a little bit of magenta and red in the other painting around the edges and stuff. It's not, what am I gonna say? It's not like glaringly obvious, but your eye will pick it up, and it makes it more intense. Even though it's not like the shining star in the painting, your eye sees it, and it makes the painting more dynamic. So this is the thing that was not present in the little studies that I did in direct observation in the garden, that I wanted to bring in to these pieces, and I really like the effect of that. So that's the thing. I really like the way these two turned out, and I believe that I will do another larger piece with the same background, either on a panel or on a larger piece of watercolor piece of paper, another bigger study of these, because I really like the way that complementary pop is coming through. I wanted to do at least one more of these to see how I like that. I might do one with a primary red and one with a magenta. There's a lot more that I'd like to explore with this color palette and the background, the painted background. But it's a really fun way to bring in complementary color and interesting color combinations. And you can do this even in water-based medium, which a lot of people aren't aware of, because you can do a lot of layering. Even if you were doing this in regular watercolor, you could work this way. People a lot of times aren't aware of the versatility of these mediums. You just have to let things dry in between layers. If you're doing transparent watercolor, you can still work this way. You just have to let everything dry in between layers.